We're 3 weeks away from opening day, and the Mariners bullpen still has yet to sort itself out. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the injuries that have happened to the Mariners relievers over the past few days, and then we're going to get into the top 30 prospects for the Seattle Mariners recently released by MLB.com. We got a few of them right, all me, not Joe. And we appreciate you guys coming here to watch episode 67 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Tyler Cloyd episode of the Hit It Here podcast. I'm here with Joe. Joe, how are you?
I am doing very well. Even though you're slandering my name right now, saying that you
Mhm.
got some of the prospects right, when I made the entire list, I'm just going to pull back the curtain a little bit, but that's okay. The Mariners got a dub, which is, I think, a step in the direction of making myself feel good about this team. But there have been some things that have kind of cropped up over the last couple of days in regards to the Mariners bullpen and just, I think, players in general. But it's mainly been focusing on the bullpen. But it also seems like they are normal injury occurrences from guys just getting back into baseball activity. Like, sure, shoulder soreness. I don't know if like you and I, this is a bad example, but like if you and I, the beginning of like high school baseball season, the first
Uh-huh.
week our shoulder and our elbows typically are just shot. And so I can
Sure.
only imagine Major League Baseball players probably go through a similar thing, but they are able to bounce back from it a little bit better because they are obviously professional baseball players. So the first one that came up, Shannon Drayer posted yesterday. They were recording this is March 6th, that Jackson Kowar felt some soreness in his last outing and is getting checked out. Service said a number of guys are dealing with normal early spring training soreness. So Jackson Kowar, a guy that's looked really good in spring, will likely figure into the Mariners bullpen on opening day, with Matt Brash likely definitely not being ready for opening day. And also another guy mentioned in this specific post from Drayer, Gregory Santos, he's progressing, but he hasn't even taken his full like bullpen, like a light bullpen yet. And that's something that's coming later this week. So both of those guys, Brash and Santos, being ready for opening day, pretty up in the air right now. Santos more than likely could be, like, is definitely more potential to be than Brash. But if Kowar is a guy that you're pushing back, he's not going to be as fully ramped up as you want. That could be a problem with how the Mariners bullpen is sorting itself out. I feel like there are a couple other guys. Colton, you want me to lead you through who those guys are?
Yeah, Joe, I don't think that we can really look at the full length of this bullpen without betting for who's going to be in this bullpen on opening day. But first, a word from Bet Online.
It is March, and that means one of the biggest sporting events is about to get underway. Spring training for baseball is here, baby. I'm kidding. March Madness, you guys all know. If you are a sports fan, you likely make some sort of bracket, some sort of prediction for March Madness. You want to do something a little bit more with it, maybe place a bet on it. The place to do it is obviously Bet Online. Bet Online continues to be your number one source for all your basketball wagering needs, including pro and, like I'm saying, college hoops throughout the year, specifically the month of March, is a banger. If you want to pick that round, 13 and 14 seed upset, that's the time to do it. Whoever's getting upset this year, place that bet on Bet Online. They've got up to the minute odds, stats, and trends so you can follow your favorite team's path to the playoffs or through into the Sweet 16, if you will, with in-game live betting contests and all the best player props available. And remember, head to Bet Online today to become part of the team. And remember to use promo code Bleav, BLEAV, for 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online. The game starts here.
So, Joe, the other two names on that list, both Joey Krehbiel and Cody Bolton, along with Jackson Kowar, are a couple of guys that we expected with Brash and Santos being out at the start of the year that had a chance to make this bullpen. Can you tell me a little bit more about either Bolton or Krehbiel here?
So Krehbiel is pushed back from game action because he's got a neck strain. So that one, however it sorts itself out, like if he just needs to go get like a neck massage or something stupid from the training, like whatever, whatever it takes to get him back on the mound. I'm sure
I
it'll
do,
be
I do
okay.
too.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
going
Like
in.
just let me stretch mine out really quick. But Krehbiel, I don't expect that one to be like a long stint because it's not like, to me, any injury that is more related to like your mechanics, like your arm or like something like on your lower half on your legs, is probably going to keep you out longer than like your neck. Maybe. I don't know if that's like ignorant of me, but that just kind of feels more like that doesn't seem like as bad of an injury or like a setback. Whereas Cody Bolton, discomfort in his ankle and has had his throwing schedule adjusted. So it's like if it's either on his plant foot or, his back foot, either one, that ankle, that both of them are going to be generating a lot of force when they land or when you're pushing off, however it works. That one I'd say is one that you're probably more concerned about if you're the Mariners coaching staff and the training staff. But whether or not Cody Bolton really was in line to kind of figure into this bullpen, that's kind of also up in the air because I'd say Krehbiel's probably looked a little bit better than him or had a better shot. Ty Buttrey's also been a bit better, I would say, and has had another. I think he's ahead of him in the power rankings of the bullpen pitchers that could make it. Levi Stout, this is not an injury related thing, but it's also just a bullpen thing. Levi Stout, I guess his fastball's up to 97 in the 2 innings that he pitched. So good for Levi Stout. I know it's more of the 7th starter that we're really looking at for Levi Stout there, but if he's a guy that, say, you need him if Austin Voth isn't working out, I'm sure he probably will, but say Stout's a guy that you need to call upon. His velo's there, which is good. Overall, I'm not like super worried about the Mariners like bullpen right now because we're 3 weeks away. There's some time for these injuries to kind of work themselves out because it is early in spring. Guys will just kind of are going through like the I won't say like the growing pains of getting back into baseball activity, but that's kind of what it feels like. And also like you still have Spire, you still have Saucedo. Ty Adcock saw his first inning in spring. I think either yesterday or today that we're recording this. Bizzardo's a guy that hasn't even pitched yet. So there are options for the Mariners, whether they're like the options that we necessarily want them to have in the back end of the bullpen. But there'll be guys that can go out there and throw a baseball to hopefully Cal Raleigh's mitt. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not going to be guys that will. I don't know. The Mariners are going to field a competitive bullpen on opening day. Bottom line.
You mentioned Edward Bizzardo there, and I think that it's interesting that he hasn't pitched yet at all that we've seen anyway, because it was on February 15th, I just saw an article that said he was going to be slow played this spring due to an undisclosed injury. So I don't know what that means. And to be fair, that was over a month ago or almost a month ago. So something could have come out. That was just a quick little Google search. But like the fact that Bizzardo might also be hurt, it's rough to go out there and see who the Mariners are going to field in this bullpen, because we know Munoz is going to be a lock. We know Spire's a lock at this point, providing health for all these guys. Saucedo's probably a lock.
Thornton.
Austin Voth is maybe a lock. I don't know. He hasn't been very good. Thornton's probably a lock, although he also hasn't been great. So Kowar, I figured, would have been a lock at this point just because of how good he's pitched so far and how much the Mariners like him. But it's the rest of this bullpen, I think, is still up for grabs with Matt Brash and Gregory Santos possibly not making the opening day roster. And as we see guys start to fall off with injuries, of course, it'll all depend on how bad these injuries are, to whether it be the ankle for Bolton or the neck for Krehbiel. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that the Mariners, there's still time for them to go out there and sign somebody if they want to. And or maybe even make like a small trade somewhere along the line. One thing that I find very interesting though is we all thought that Prelander Baroa, see what I'm doing here, Joe? Don't you like this? Prelander Baroa was going to be a part of this Mariners bullpen this year. And we had him in our top 30 for the Mariners prospects earlier this year. Well, he's gone now. So let's get into the top prospects, Joe. Where do you want to start?
I think we just work our way from the bottom to the top, talk about some of the noteworthy guys here and maybe where they missed out or messed up on some of these rankings. So like Luis Sweetspell cracks into the top 30. He was a guy in Modesto last year, was part of the championship run for them. Well, he did well, but he is like I think that's appropriate for him. Troy Taylor is a guy that our resident community member Accent, who is a prospect hugger, actually is really high on. Troy Taylor's a guy that he was in Everett last year, but has high upside of being a pretty solid reliever, I would say. Marcelo Perez is here. Walter Ford is at 27, and I'm gonna backpack off of Accent here a couple of times, but he had some issues with MLB Pipeline's list, and one of the big problems he had was that Walter Ford was sick last year, which is I didn't know. It was news to me until I read this post, but he was sick with mono last year, which is why his performance was down. And Walter Ford was a guy when he was he was in the top 10. You think he was like 8th at his highest, and he slowly just kind of like fell down the rungs of the pipeline list. And it was a guy that coming out when he was drafted, and he's a high school pitcher, the vanilla missile, he was pumping gas. But last year his velos were down horrendously, and now we know that it's mono, or it was mono, and so far in spring, his velos actually look really good. So him at 27, he will probably, like when they re-rank this in the middle of the season, if he's pitching well, he should jump up that list. Brody Hopkins is here. Blake Hunt acquired in the offseason. We traded Tatum Levens for him. He's 25th. So that's a guy that's like similar to like Zach Deloach, a guy that we also traded is an older prospect that probably won't move up anywhere. Pipeline has Alberto Rodriguez up next, a guy that we've seen a little bit here in spring. Jimmy Joyce is here at 23. Ty Adcock, a guy that we mentioned that could figure into the Mariners bullpen. He pitched last year for us in the majors as well, here at 22. I think that's one that, for me, I'm surprised he's only pitched 1 inning. I'm not sure the reasoning behind it, whether or not he was injured coming into the offseason or spring training. But Adcock, a guy, gave you legit major league innings for a while. I mean, I think he had a stretch of just like scoreless outings for a bit there, and then he got like torched and then eventually got replaced. But Adcock's available. Taylor Dollard somehow is hanging on to the top 30, a guy that I would not have expected to be here. And then at 20, Logan Evans.
Yeah, so just a couple things to note here. We had Taylor Dollard. He didn't make our top 30 at all this year after falling off last year down in AAA Tacoma. Blake Hunt, obviously. So again, we made this before we heard this list, of course, and before a lot of these trades had happened. So we had Zach DeLoach still on our list. We had Prelander still on our list. So, it is what it is. We didn't have guys like Blake Hunt on there. Alberto Rodriguez, we had at 20. They ranked him at 24th. I think that's probably fair because in my opinion, he probably has to hit. And he might be good in a corner outfield spot, but I think another guy that I like on here is Jimmy Joyce. Obviously, he's in Double A right now. He's projected to be up in 2025, so next year, another guy you can have out there in your bullpen if you need him to be. And honestly, I haven't seen him if he's pitched at all this spring. I'm not sure. But I think that he's a guy that we could see rise quickly depending on what happens with the Mariners bullpen going into 2024. Who else do we have here? Walter Ford, like you said, with the mono. I think it was Logan that had mono coming out of college. And so he missed his whole first year, I think, with the Mariners in the minor league system because of it.
Okay.
So, or maybe it was George. It was one of the two. So, I mean, it's no joke. It can take these guys a while to come back from that. So, yeah, Walter Ford's a guy that I think we could watch going into the middle of the summer. And if we do a re-rank after the trade deadline, he could be, back up in the top 15 later on the season.
Yeah, because he's super young. He just recently turned 20, so... Or no, sorry, he just recently turned 19. A guy that we missed on pretty big here is my fault. I was a little ambitious. Number 19, Cole Phillips, is where the MLB Pipeline has him for the Mariners. I had him as the top-ranked pitching prospect for the Mariners. We acquired him from the Braves in the Jared Kelenic trade along with Jackson Kowar. And Phillips is also not pitching probably in 2024. So it's just another unfortunate situation where we didn't know an injury was going to happen, and lo and behold, he's injured. A guy that I should have ranked higher, or I was pretty high on him. I didn't feel so bold to put him where I had Phillips in the top 10. But Jeter Martinez here at 18. We had DeWalt Joseph at 10. He's here at 17. So again, I think we kind of saw the hype that Celestin got in his first year, when he debuted onto the list, and we're like, yeah, let's just keep riding that. Let's give DeWalt Joseph around top 10. Call it a day. Ben Williamson here at 16, Teddy McGraw 15 for Pipeline, Aiden Smith there's at 14, Michael Morales. Aside from Emerson Hancock, who will graduate off this list because he is 11th, Michael Morales comes in at 13th, the top ranked pitching prospect. I would probably put Teddy McGraw and Cole Phillips, should Phillips have been healthy, over Michael Morales personally. And then in between Hancock and Morales, Ryan Bliss, the player for the Mariners who is leading the team in hits this spring training. People crying out for him to crack into the top 10. He's there at 12.
Yeah, so we had Bliss ranked at 15 on our list.
We just kept him where he was pretty much, I think.
Yeah. And I think that after seeing him this spring, depending on what happens with, Luis Urias, or if there's another injury in camp somewhere, he might force the Mariners' hand early in the season. I don't think he'll break camp with the team. I think right now, the guy who is probably forcing the Mariners' hand more than anyone is Samad Taylor. He's looked really, really good this spring. I think, is going to be in there over Sam Haggerty, maybe even over Dylan Moore. A guy that we had ranked in the 20s was Ben Williamson, obviously just recently drafted as well. They had him ranked at 16. And then, DeWalt Joseph, we had him at 9, which I think, like you said, riding the high of Felton and Celestin in 2023's draft, maybe we thought DeWalt Joseph might be in there somewhere as well. We did not have... Who did we not have that was on this part? There was somewhere. Where do we have Aiden Smith at?
Aiden Smith had to have been on our list.
We had him
somewhere.
at 16. We had him at 16. But someone that we've had there that we did have, a couple people that we did have that aren't on this list right now, Ashton Izzy, not on here at all. which is surprising to me, in my opinion. I think that Ashton Izzy does have a bright future. Reed Van Scooter, we had at 26, whatever.
He's looked good in
Um,
spring, but I think I understand why people might leave him off these prospect lists in the top 30.
right. And then Emerson Hancock, I mean, we had him at 12, they had him at 11. I think that Hancock's a guy who his stock is rising again in 2024 after he had a rough 2023. I think that he could either be a good trade chip for the Mariners later on this season, or he could be a guy that breaks into the top 5 if somebody does get hurt. Based on what we've heard from camp about Emerson Hancock, if he doesn't graduate this season, I think we could see Hancock back into the top 10 later on in like August.
I mean, it's easy to see that 96, 97 with a pretty devastating changeup will play in like a major league situation for Emerson Hancock, and it's good so long as his shoulder holds up. Stocks are rising for him. A guy that seemingly is holding on to this top 10 status. Jonathan Clase. I mean, he's looked okay in spring. Like offensively, the speed plays, but defensively, he's again the speed plays, so he's using his speed to his advantage there. But some defensive shortcomings in terms of like his reaction time and stuff. But Clase's here at 10 for Pipeline. Michael Arroyo, a guy that we figured would drop down. He is 9th here. We kind of had a similar idea for him. Tyler Locklear here at 8 looked really good in spring as well. I think we had him. Did we have him at 10 or
10.
10th?
He was 10.
Okay, thought so. Yeah, I didn't know if people would really value the potential of the larger potential for prospects that we just drafted, like Farmelo and Pete, more than him. So I put him at 10th, but ahead of him, number 7 here, Ty Pete, and Johnny Farmelo at 6, who we did not have in the top 10. We had him at 11. So Farmelo, a guy, had a triple in the game earlier this week, or last weekend. Either way, speed kills Johnny Farmelo. He looks like, but that draft class for the Mariners last year looks like there's a lot of good potential to grow into. And we get into the top 5. And, this is what we almost nailed it. We almost nailed it. We should I
so
should have
close.
trusted what you would have wanted more, because I could not put Laz higher than Felon and Celestin. But the people at MLB Pipeline can. Celestin at 5, Lazaro Montes at 4.
Which I find interesting because I think one of the things that we really, when looking at the prospects, and you look at the positions for Felnin and for Lazaro, I think that obviously Felnin plays a more premium position. I think that shortstop's going to play a much bigger role in this organization than a power hitting outfielder. And so maybe that went into maybe defense is kind of what led us to put Celestin over Lazaro Montes, but it's undeniable how good Montes could be in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Celestin, maybe it's just the fact that we haven't been able to see him as much as we would have wanted to.
True.
I think that he hasn't gotten an at bat at all, has he?
In spring?
Yeah.
No,
because Lazaro has.
Yeah, he had. Oh, dude, he got a very poor strike 3 called on him. It was a little inside, and it could have been a very big moment for him where he would have taken the lead. I don't know if it would have been a walk-off. I think it ended the game, so I think could have been a walk-off situation. But it was overall, it was a good at bat regardless. It just ended in a backwards K, unfortunately. But it was a strike call that should not have been. The ump just wanted to go home. All right, the ump's retired. I get it.
Happens.
The Arizona Heat was getting to him behind the plate. But do you think Montes will move to first base, or do you think he can grow into that?
I think it'd be interesting to give him a shot over there because he's a freaking gigantic human being.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if they wanted to at least give him a shot, I don't think that you take him out of the outfield yet. I think that you give him a chance to stick there in right or left field. You don't give him center, obviously, but leave him out there in a corner spot in the outfield for as long as you can. But I think that if you were to play him over there at first base once or twice a week while he's down in single A, or if he moves up to Everett or what have you, I think that it'd be a good idea just to give him some positional versatility, because the more versatility you can get for a guy like Lazaro Montes, the better. He's not going to blow you away defensively out in a corner outfield spot. And I think that if he wants to make a major league team, he's going to need to be versatile, kind of like Yordan, for example. Obviously, Yordan can play first base if you need him to, or you can put him in a corner outfield spot. But he's better suited as a DH. I'm pretty sure, no?
I'm going to be honest with you. If he has no knowledge of it from my part, and it's a fever dream of like, we'll we're foreshadowing what Jordan's going to do next year. Is he'll
Bro,
see innings at first base.
I swear to God, he's played first base. All right, hold on. Don't do this to me, Joseph. So upon further review, Jordan Alvarez has never played first base in the major leagues, but he will this year. Mark my words. Jordan Alvarez.
You called Bryce Harper last year. Now you're calling
I
Jordan
did.
this year.
That's calling my shot, just like how the Royals are going to the World Series this year. I'm calling my shot.
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah, I think that you should move Lazaro over there just every once in a while to play first base just to get him the versatility to help him crack a roster somewhere. Because when it comes to outfield positioning, he's not going to be Julio Rodriguez running around out there in right center and right or left field. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so if he can be at least adequate over there at first base, that just gives him another opportunity to crack a roster somewhere where it might not have been before. I think the same goes with Felnin. I mean, you keep him at shortstop for as long as you can, but if it's not working out, you can move him to second or third base, and I think that both of those things will be fine for him.
Mm-hmm.
Then we move on to number 3, who is Colt Emerson on both lists, both our list and their list, who we've seen a lot of this spring.
He, he's a guy that I think a lot of people might even put 1. I know Accent has wanted to put him at 1, and there's been so many little radio spots of people that are in or around baseball professionally. Like Colt Emerson could very well be a top 25 prospect by the end of this year. He's currently in the Pipeline top 100. I think he's in the 70s or 80s, but I think by midseason re-rank he will pass Harry Ford. Not to say that Harry Ford has reached some sort of prospect fatigue or whatever. I think Emerson is literally just that good. He is legitimately an unbelievable talent to just watch, and his body makeup, his build.
He's yoked, dude.
He's yoked, bro. And they've got
the weight room.
Yeah, they've got him shortstop, second base. Give him third base too. I think he could grade out just as well as a third baseman as well. He, I think, can grow into 25, 30 bomb pop if you really I think it's within him to do so. His ETA is also 2026, a guy that we drafted last year out of high school. So it's they are, I don't want to say fast tracking, but it seems like him and Cole Young both have excelled in the Mariners system. And the limited time that we saw Colt Emerson last year, obviously he was drafted last year, complex league into Modesto, but he did help lead the way for the Modesto Nuts to go on a 17-game win streak and also win the California League Championship. That's just the way it was. He was a huge contributing factor there. I could see him passing, like I said earlier, the number 2 on this list, Harry Ford, at some point. But it's not to say that Harry Ford does not deserve his flowers, because dude is still a very, very good prospect overall.
And he's looked really good behind the plate so far this spring as well. He's thrown out a couple runners. And even if the bat isn't necessarily there for him all the time, I think that defensively, Harry Ford has to be one of the best catchers in the game. There have been talks about moving him, whether it be to third base or even to an outfield position. Same with Laz and with Felnin. You keep him there as long as you can, just because it's a more premium position. But if Harry Ford can kind of find his stroke again, and it's not to say that he's been bad, he just hasn't been great. He has a great idea of the strike zone. He is someone that if he hits, he should be on the fast track up to the major leagues. I think that's kind of where he hit his, I don't want to say a plateau last year, but that's kind of the wall that was put in front of him last year, where he was struggling to make hard contact and he wasn't hitting as well as he was, for example, saying the WBC or something like that, where all of a sudden he was lighting the world on fire.
Yeah.
Harry Ford at number 2, I'm still fine with, but even at this point, I might say that I'd rather have Emerson at 2 than Harry Ford.
Sure.
Not, again, like you said, not to say that Harry Ford has no place in the top 3. I just think that when it comes to the guys that are catching up to him, they should maybe be ahead of him. Harry Ford, they have his ETA at 2025, so next year, which I think is right. But I would say it's probably closer to the end of next year than it would be towards breaking camp, unless he has a stellar 2024. A guy who we could see this year is the number 1 prospect, Cole Young. Jerry DiPoto already mentioned that once, and he's looked really good this spring as well.
Yeah, he's a guy that just has shown up to spring training and has hit. And any questions about whether or not the Mariners are able to hit on the draft in terms of drafting position players, him and Ford, and also I guess Emerson as well. Those 3, the trifecta, are starting to show that okay, these guys are legit talents, and Cole Young is leading the charge played very well in Modesto last year, got called up to Everett. He will start in Arkansas without a doubt in my mind. There's no reason for him to go back to Everett. He will start in AA this year. And whether or not he even sees Tacoma, like, I don't know, like maybe Tacoma's in the second half and Arkansas's the first half, or if he does end up making his major league debut, it would be in the second half. Because even with a phenomenal spring training like he's had, Cole Young, I don't see him breaking camp just because, one, you've kind of told the cautionary tale of like the Dustin Ackley, or maybe even we're transitioning it to a different position. You know, he retired today. Mike Zunino got called up too early. Mike Zunino is good. He was good,
That's right.
if you will.
He was good.
Was good. So you don't want to rush them through it too much. And if we see Cole Young debut in 2024, not to say that I won't be excited, but I will definitely err on the side of caution a bit more than if we were to see it in 2025, just because, like, how can you not be a little hesitant? But also, like, guys like Evan Carter for the Rangers last year, which came up and was like a dude. He torched Logan for 2 home runs in spring, like last weekend. He's a dude. Could Cole Young be that same style of player? Maybe. I mean, Evan Carter is more so like in the top 20-ish of prospects, whereas like Young is kind of like in the like 30 to 40 range. But Cole Young is a guy that every Mariners fan should be excited for going forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that the Mariners don't rush their guys like the Angels do. Think of like Zach Neto and Noah Schwamel.
No, isn't it? Is it
How are they?
Nolan? Nolan Schnau?
Noah? I don't know. Something like that. It's got a funny name. That was good.
Thank you.
That was real funny, Joe. Congrats. I'm glad that they don't rush their prospects like that because these guys need time to develop. And we've seen plenty of times these guys get rushed, like you said, Mike Zunino, Dustin Ackley, etc. I mean, you could even say guys like, Taiwan or James Paxton might have even been a little bit rushed. So when it comes to the Mariners prospects, we know that their window of opportunity is right now, but if they let these guys develop, it can extend through the end of the decade. Whereas if you get to 2026 or whatever, and some of these guys start to leave, whether that be Ty or obviously Jorge Polanco, you can start to fill in with these other guys in your system, like the Cole Youngs and the Colt Emersons, and even Harry Ford if like Cal leaves or something like that. So what the Mariners are doing on the prospect side of things is one of the best in the game, in my opinion. Obviously, we know teams like, the Braves or the Rays. They're good at this as well. But the Mariners, I think, they're just now starting to show just how good at this they are. Obviously, they've already done it on the pitching side. Now we're starting to see it with the hitters, and it's only a matter of time before they start to actually make their debut in the major leagues and start to make a big impact. And now that some of the free agents are coming off of the board, the Mariners might be interested in making a trade with the San Francisco Giants. We talked about that on an earlier episode of the Hit It Here podcast. Go ahead and check that one out on the screen now. We appreciate you guys watching episode 67 of the Hit It Here podcast presented by Bet Online, the Matt Festa episode of the Hit It Here podcast, and go Mariners.